Hey, welcome back, guys, to another video. I don't know if you guys watched the response by Jason Whitlock on his show Fearless. He responded to the response to his initial message. You know, he reviewed the book. He allegedly claimed that he read Stephen A. Smith's memoir, and he had some questions about the content that was in the book. He saw some contradictions and certain narratives that didn't align. So, you know, of course, Jason Whitlock, being the kind of person he is and being having that journalistic mindset, he dove deeper into those issues in the book and asked questions and put it out there on blast for people to see that, hey, this guy, Stephen A. Smith, is not really being truthful in his memoir. And of course, Jason Whitlock goes on, not Jason Whitlock, but Stephen A. Smith goes on his show, on his podcast, and just, you know, goes for about 45-50 minutes on a rant. I mean, he was emotional, of course, because anytime you make a person come out of character, and I say character because your true nature comes out in times of adversity. If you can't muzzle or control that inner beast within, because we all have it. We all have that dualistic mindset. We have the personality that's mild-mannered and calm and logical and rational, functioning underneath logic. But then you also have the type of personality that's highly emotional, that's irrational, that's unhinged, that's, you know, that's not balanced. And I think that's where Stephen A. Smith was on his show. I mean, you can tell he was upset. He had multiple times where he's using profanity in his response. And so with that being said, I want you guys to pay attention to how the social constructs in regards to how social media is used to shape the minds of the masses. Okay? I'm trying to put my thoughts together because I'm not a journalist. I don't write. I'm not a writer. I'm driving in my car. So I'm really trying to put my thoughts together in a sequence that's going to make sense to you guys as you guys listen to what I'm going to say. For the novice, for the average person, which is the majority of people, okay? Majority of people don't have the ability to critically think. Critical thinking is an actual skill that has to be honed from an early age. Sometimes it can be genetically passed down from your parents. If you had smart parents who were critical thinkers, you're more likely to be that. If you had parents that were drug addicts or addicted to the junk food chemicals that are in foods, it will affect the thinking process of melanated people. Follow me here as I'm saying this. I know you guys don't want to hear this, but I'm giving you reasons as to why our people lack the ability to think critically and why we are so easily swayed by our emotions. And we choose the easier route. We choose the rhetorics and the narratives that appeases or appeals to our emotions rather than things that appeals to logic and things that actually make sense. Because things that make sense are pretty much black and white. There's not them there isn't that much gray area in things that are truthful. Seldom times you may have gray area, but for the most part, truth is really, you know, painted in black and white. So critical thinking is a skill. Now, for the average person who sees what's going on between Jason Whitlock and Stephen A. Smith, most people heard the response from Stephen A. Smith and said, oh yeah, man, he roasted, or not roasted, or he cooked, you know, he killed, he destroyed, he eviscerated, he annihilated Jason Whitlock. Based on what? Because he cursed? But see, logical-minded people, critical thinkers, deep thinkers, people who have the mind of reviewing things or delving deeper into deeper issues, and people who are looking for content and information, who are not looking for an emotional appeal to sway them either yay or nay, are going to be looking for content. When I listen to Jason Whitlock and I listen to Stephen A. Smith, to me, Stephen A. Smith is more his responses are based more on appealing to the people's emotions. That's why he has the inflections of his voice where he gets real high and gets real low. He uses curse words. He's very animated and charismatic when he speaks. The best way to respond to your critic is to take what they said and break it down and rebut it and counter it with a counter argument that makes sense. And if they do get you on a specific topic, give in. Give in. What do I mean by give in? Concede. Concede. Actually say, hey, they're right. In 19 or in 2000, blah, 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 when he said that I did blah, 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 yes, I did it. And move on. That's how you build credibility with your fan base. If you try to rebut every critique, make sure that you rebut the critique with a counter argument that's valid, that's justified, and that makes sense, that would appeal to the critical thinker's mind. See, whenever you respond to people, appeal to critical thinkers. Don't try to appeal to people who can't critically think, because you're never going to sway that. People who lack the skill of critical thinking are always going to lean towards the person that moves them emotionally. So when you watch Stephen A. Smith, that's just filth. That's just for entertainment purposes. He's cursing. He's calling Jason Whitlock a fat bastard. And he's a despicable person. People who don't think love that because it's right up their alley. It's cursing. It's profanity. It doesn't force you to think. It doesn't force you to scratch your head and look deeper into the issues that are being discussed. It's easy. It's simple. It's simple to watch two people curse each other out. You don't have to think. You're just watching people just have conversation, lacing it up with profanity. Anyone can do that. So whenever you respond, you have to appeal to the higher character, or should I say the higher standard. The higher standard is to appeal to the critical thinker. You always have to know who your audience is. And if you want to appeal to the baser of our kind, then you're going to get responses that are based upon stupidity. That's why most people on their channels were, yeah, Stephen A. Smith, he cooked Jason Whitlock, and he did this, he did that. And I'm like, no, he didn't. He's upset. He's triggered. And whenever someone's triggered, it means that you must have hit a nerve that strikes some truth. Okay? You hit a nerve that struck some truth. People who are insecure and people who go around because they lack self-confidence, they usually have to put on a front and a mask to place themselves in a category that they're not truly in. So if you want to make yourself a tough guy, listen to what I just said. Make yourself a tough guy. See, tough guys don't have to make themselves tough guys. They're tough by default. The judgment of the audience gives them or renders to them the label of being tough. Tough guys don't say they're tough. You know who says tough guys are tough? Everybody else. Great players don't say they're great. You know who says they're great? The audience, the people who watch them. Great boxers don't go out and say I'm great. They don't go around tooting their own horn. The audience says so. The audience. The majority of people that are watching, the listeners, they're the ones that are going to give you the label and give you the identification of what you are. They're going to correctly label you. So when you have a person that's insecure, when you have a person that's built a false narrative about themselves, that's a sign of insecurity. That's a sign of lack of confidence within self. And that's what Stephen A. Smith reminds me of. I don't have anything personal against him. I don't know him. I don't care for him. I mean, yeah, he has his own life. That's him. I would hate to have a mind like his. I would hate to be in his mental state where you feel the need to increase your self-worth through false perceptions and false narratives in order to build yourselves amongst your fan base. Let your content drive it. Let your information drive it. Let your character drive that. You don't have to build some caricature of yourself that's not rooted in truth to make yourself known or to increase your popularity. So when I see people telling me that or saying things like Jason Whitlock got cooked, no, I think Jason Whitlock is handling this the best way. He handled it well with the ticket, and he's handling Stephen A. Smith well. That's what you do. That's why his show was longer, because when you have a debate, whether it's a formal debate or an informal debate, it's very wise for you to break things down for your audience. It forces them to think. If Jason Whitlock got on his show, The Fearless, yesterday, and did the same thing that Jason Whitlock did, guess who that would appeal to? That would appeal to the baser of our kind. When I say the baser of our kind, I mean the baser, the lower class citizens who lack the ability to critically think. The lower class people who are moved only by emotions. The lower class people who refuse to think for themselves. You know why? Because they are led by external stimuli. They are extrinsically motivated. They lack the intrinsic qualities to be self-confident within themselves and to be individualistic. What they do, they look for things to appeal to. They look for things that appeals to their emotions, and then when your emotions are reached or tapped into, that's what they lean into. So if Jason Whitlock got on his show and started cursing right back at Stephen A. Smith, number one, of course, that will go viral, because that's what people want. The more conflict, the more negativity that's spewed on social media, the better it is for the people who are spreading it, because they say, oh, guess what Jason Whitlock said, or guess what Stephen A. Smith said. So it ends up going back and forth, like a ping pong match where these guys are going back and forth with swear words. But I'm glad that Jason Whitlock took the road that he took. And it's not so much that I agree with on his show when he's doing other topics. It's not that I agree with his topics, because as you guys know, I've done videos here to tell you that I for the most part, I don't agree with everything that he says. But I do like the way he handles and responds to his critics. You can learn a lot from the quote-unquote fat bastard, as he's called by Stephen A. Smith. And I think it's also quite telling that Coach Prime is co-signing and agreeing and saying amen to the response of Stephen A. Smith. That's to let you know Coach Prime still hasn't grown. Though he's in his mid-50s, he hasn't grown either. You know what I mean by grown? Meaning that he hasn't got to the position where he can actually take the critique of people and consider it. See, Jason Whitlock did that even years past when he wrote that letter, that apology letter that he wrote to Stephen A. Smith about how he treated him. He was forced to reflect upon certain things that he did. He put on the letter, I'm not saying this, you don't have to accept it, but I just wanted to let you know that I apologize for what I did. That's the letter that he wrote about ESPN. And, I don't want to go through the details, but I can't remember all the details. But him attacking ESPN was kind of like him attacking Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. Smith at the time worked for ESPN. So Jason Whitlock was apologizing for the article that he wrote that attacked ESPN. It's all on his show. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure many of you guys already watched it. The Fearless, the response that Jason Whitlock had to Stephen A. Smith's profanity-laced response that went on for about 45 to 50 minutes. So I like the way he responds. You can learn a lot from that. We can all learn a lot from that. And then Coach Prime co-signed that, saying amen to Stephen A. Smith's response. That's not something that I want to co-sign to. That's not. It's filled with drama. I mean, initially, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, when I watched Stephen A. Smith's response, I'm like, wow, he's upset. He's angry. That was it. And to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, when you are that angry and you're using profanity, you're name calling, it shows me that not only does it show me that you lack self-control, but it also tells me, or it makes me believe that whatever your rebuttal or whatever your response is, it loses credibility. It loses its value because you're not responding, you're name calling. because whatever somebody did affected you. And if it affected you, it means it must be true. For instance, if somebody calls me dumb, it doesn't affect me because I know I'm not dumb. I know what I am. Whether you call me smart or dumb, like, your words won't affect me because I'm secure in who I am. But if somebody says something about you and you respond to it, it means that whatever they said to you has merit, and whatever they said to you is true. It happens to be true. You know what they used to say back in the past? They say it today. You know, don't answer, only answer to your name. So if someone calls you out of your name and you respond to them, it means that whatever they said must be true. Just because Jason Whitlock reviews Stephen A. Smith's memoir and has questions, all right, about some of the things that are said in there, why should that get you upset? Stephen A. Smith, why are you angry? If it's true, clear it up. As a matter of fact, you should be chomping at the bit to prove it if it's true. Because then it'll make your naysayers look silly. It'll make your critics look foolish because you have evidence to prove what you're saying. But you don't have that. Stephen A. Smith gets on, speaking loudly, cursing, upset, because it's true. Whatever Jason Whitlock said about him is true. People hate to be hit with truth. And that's why he had that kind of response. That's why he had that kind of response. Jason Whitlock doesn't feel the need to come back at Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith called him a fat bastard. As a matter of fact, you know, Jason Whitlock wears his fatness pretty well. He knows he's a big guy. He's working it out. He's on his mission to lose weight, to lose more weight. He used to be bigger than he is now. So he understands that he's a big guy and he's secure in his bigness. He's not walking around saying that I'm skinny and muscular and then gets offended when somebody calls him a fat bastard. It starts to, you know, garner an emotional response that makes him illogical as he's talking. Because whenever you're upset and you're responding off of emotions, you tend not to make sense. You tend to actually make yourself look more foolish than you were initially. The best thing to do is don't respond when you are emotional. All right? So you have Coach Prime co-signing that, and that just speaks a lot to what type of mental state Coach Prime is in. That's not something I would, even if Stephen A. Smith was my friend, and let's say I hated Jason Whitlock with a passion, right? And I saw that response from Stephen A. Smith, and Stephen A. Smith was my friend. I wouldn't like that, because Stephen A. Smith is a professional. He works at ESPN. I don't want to see my melanated brother act that way nationally. You can be upset, but be upset and control your verbiage, control your words, you know. Because initially, the person who you're responding to didn't curse you out. Jason Whitlock never got on there cursing out, name calling and cursing out Stephen A. Smith. He just had questions about the content in the book. So keep it in the book. Keep the conversation in the book. Don't get personal. When Stephen A. Smith chose to get personal, that's what you guys like, because that's juicy fodder. That's juicy content. It's trash to me though, but people love that. It's messy. That's feminine stuff. That's feminine trait. That's the kind of stuff that I agree with when Jason Whitlock talks about that. That's the feminine traits. The gossip. He said, she said, he said, they said, ooh, he cursed them out. Ooh, ooh. Who does that? We are grown men. We're not women. Hormonally, we're not women. Genetically, we're not women. Our mental disposition, we're not women. We don't think the same. Yes, we're both humans, yes. But we're not the same. We should stop acting like that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Keep it in the book, Stephen A. Smith. Talk about the book. That's childish. That's very immature of our people to do that. And I'm glad that somebody in our race is trying to elevate the way we respond to one another. Conflict is a part of life. Conflict is something that you can't escape. But how you handle conflict is even more important than the conflict itself. Trying to evade conflict all the time is not it's not realistic. conflict in life is synonymous to one another. You can't escape it. The only way you can escape conflict is dying. As long as you're alive, you're going to have conflict. But how you handle it is important. And I think, and I know for a fact that the way Jason Whitlock is handling it is the best way you handle it. Calm, collected, and just speak to the content. And then let the people be the judge. And anybody with a rational mind would know it's not about who's winning or who's losing. It seems to me that the truth about the book, in terms of what Jason Whitlock is saying, is true. And it seems like the contents in the book are falsified information. It's falsified information. It's a false narrative because things don't line up. They don't line up. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that. You can just look at the video. Look at the contents of the book. All right. Because if someone's lying on you and you can prove them to be liars, you should be excited. That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to hinder the credibility of Jason Whitlock. That's an opportunity to hurt his fan base, because if his fan base knows that he's a liar, then people are about, whoa, how can we trust him? So rather than Stephen A. Smith taking that as an opportunity to prove Jason Whitlock wrong, he gets upset because Jason Whitlock is right. He's right. And I can relate with Jason Whitlock because I've worked the way I am, my character. I don't think like a lot of people. I don't run with crowds. I'm very introverted at heart. I can be extroverted, but people tend to think that if you are not part of the mainstream crowd, like he doesn't work for the major networks. Like Jason Whitlock is not on Fox with Skip Bayless and all those other guys. He's not on ESPN. He doesn't have his own major show on the major networks. Yes, he works for the Blaze. However, people keep using that against him as if his desire is to be at ESPN. He's already been there and done that. It didn't work for him. He didn't connect with those guys. His mindset is different. His writing is different. Sometimes he poses, well, sometimes people accidentally or mistakenly view him as a contrarian, but he's not a contrarian. His views are very different. He's not going to think. He's not a group thinker. When a bunch of melanated, and when I say melanated people, folks, I mean black people, but I hate to use the word black because black is a term that means extinction. It's a political term that was put upon us years ago. That's a story for another day. It was a way that they were used in the census when they were counting people. The term black, there's an underlying meaning to that term black, because this is black. My skin's not black. There's a difference in those two colors. This is black. This is more copper colored, brown colored, caramel. That's. But anyway, he doesn't think along the lines of group thinking. He thinks for himself, and I respect that because I'm a person that thinks for myself. When a bunch of people are saying Black Lives Matter, I was thinking, I'm like, nah, this is not about Black Lives Matter. This is something else. This is all distractions. It's a hoax. And everybody was running around talking about the big virus that was killing everybody. I was like, I have my own thoughts, and my own individual thoughts were much different than the average man. And if I said those things on YouTube, I would be censored. So I have to be very careful what I say. So I respect Jason Whitlock's mind. And the reason why I respect his mind is because it takes courage to do that. When you are shoulder to shoulder with the higher ups, with the big names, it's easy to sell your soul. When I say sell your soul, it means that you violate your conscience. Your conscience is your state or your degree of awareness. Everyone has a degree of awareness, and people are in different places in terms of their conscience. But when you know better, you do better. And with Jason Whitlock, the more he knew, the better he had to become. He had to make sacrifices. See, with me, the more I know, the better I do. It's not that, you get this job, you're going to get paid all this money, so just be quiet and do what we tell you and you'll be fine. People who take jobs like that, who violate their conscience, who violate their moral code, that's the way you sell your soul. Because when you know better and you do it anyway for the money and for the power and for fame, that's what they call selling your soul. You're selling yourself. You become a social whore. You become a whore. And the people that are paying you are your pimps. So Stephen A. Smith can call Jason Whitlock a fat bastard, but we can call Stephen A. Smith a skinny whore. A 6'1", 160-something pound skinny whore that's been ran through by the system. He's been handpicked. Because, see, people like Jason Whitlock, he's hard to control. Because he's very opinionated, and you can't tell him what to think for money. He's going to say something that's going to go against the status quo. He's going to say things that are going to violate other melanated people. And other melanated people can be like, oh, he's a black man. How come he do this? And you heard Stephen A. Smith on his tirade say that. He called Jason Whitlock a person that's worse than a white supremacist. Why? Because Jason Whitlock is melanated, and Jason Whitlock's supposed to think a certain way. Because Jason Whitlock's trying to pull black people down. That's what people tell me when I'm critical of Coach Prime. I heard people tell me, man, you're a black man putting another black man down. A black man pulling another black man down. No. People pull themselves down by their stupidity. Nobody pulls anybody down. I don't have the power to pull anybody down. And no one has the power to pull me down. So let's get that straight. No one's pulling anybody down. And we should be able to embrace critique and use it as a way to improve. That's what Jason Whitlock does. He said it on the Ticket show. He says, I know that I'm going to be critiqued. People come for me. So I have to make sure that I'm tight with everything that I do. You're supposed to be better. But when you have a person that's lacing up profanity and you clap to that and say amen, that Coach Prime did, that's not a good sign, Coach Prime. Why don't you stay out of it? I know you don't like Jason Whitlock, Coach Prime. I know you don't. You blocked him because he was very critical of you, but you didn't want to listen to what he had to say. You didn't want to consider it. Why? Because money has blocked you from seeing anything. Money has blocked you from being rational. Because you've made it this far doing things your way, so who is this fat guy to tell you how to do things? He's not a coach, I'm the coach. He's not me, I'm Prime, he's nobody. That doesn't mean anything. Social status doesn't mean anything. A bum on the street can give me advice, and I'll take it if it makes sense. We have to be open-minded and take information from anywhere we can get it. You can get information from little toddlers. Even though they can barely speak, they can teach you. They have wisdom. They're encapsulated with wisdom. Little children, they'll teach you about life and how to handle things, how to not take things so seriously. They do that. You can learn a lot from anything. Ants, bugs, trees, anything that's living, anything that has atoms in it. You can learn from it if you choose to look deeper than what's on the surface. And for you to call yourself a Christian man and then you're saying amen. So that's what I mean. That's why that Christianity and religious stuff is trash to me. It's just it's a social construct, and people just lean into it because of the social pressures, because it gives you a certain, it makes certain people gravitate towards you. And social pressures forces a lot of people just to choose something, to be part of something. I don't choose to be part of anything. I just choose to be part of myself. I am my own religion. I am my own spirit. I am my own God. I am my own everything. And once you start putting everything on yourself, you become a better person rather than relying on these external posturings outside of you to make you who you are. But yeah, that's my take on it. I liked the response. I liked the way he handled it. It was long. You have to have endurance to listen through it. But I think that's what's needed. Just getting on on camera and cursing and being loud and thinking that's gonna make people see things your way. You're fooling the ignorant. You're not gonna fool people who actually think. And I saw it from the get-go that when Stephen A. Smith was that upset and angry and cursing, I already knew that he got caught in his lie. He's upset that he got exposed. So now he has to go attack Jason Whitlock for doing his job as a journalist. All right, thank you guys for listening. All right, leave a comment, tell me what you guys think. All right, bye.